What's poppin', and welcome back to the cooking segment where today I'm sharing one of my favorite new recipes, a candy bar inspired twist on a French classic, Almond Joy meringues. So to start our meringue base, we'll get a mixing bowl, some egg whites, preferably at room temp, cream of tartar, especially if you're at high elevation, and sugar. I'm using leftover egg whites, so I did what looked like about one, and then I added about a quarter teaspoon of cream of tartar. I went a little heavy with this because I am at high altitude and it's very easy to over whip meringues at high altitude. But even if you're not at elevation, this is still a really good idea because over whipping a meringue is a really easy way to mess it up. As you can see, I'm now getting a quarter cup of sugar measured out. Quarter cup per egg white is a good rule of thumb for meringues. And now I'm gonna add this 1 tablespoon at a time while mixing it with my handheld mixer. You can of course do this with a stand mixer too, but I tend to prefer the control of the handheld mixer, especially when I'm doing something as fragile as a meringue or whipping cream or something like that. So after you've gotten all your sugar in, keep whisking that using a whisk attachment if you have it, or just using the standard hands of your handheld mixer until you get stiff peaks and until all that sugar is incorporated. This is not what stiff peaks look like, and I messed up somewhere along the way because after 15 minutes of beating, I still had nothing. So I went for a second attempt, and I actually messed up on the second attempt as well. As you can see here, these are, again, not stiff peaks. So on my third and final attempt, I finally figured it out, and I whipped the egg whites just with the cream of tartar until those reached medium peaks all by themselves. After I was at medium peaks, then I started to incorporate the sugar. As you can see, that's a medium peak. So a lot of stuff can happen and go wrong when you do meringues, especially when you're at high elevation. It is really easy to overdo them or underdo them if you're being too careful. So egg whites are just difficult to work with. So don't give yourself too hard of a time if you mess up, and just try again. So here I decided to add a little bit of blue food coloring just for some flair, and finally got my stiff peaks, which you can see hold stiff when you put the thing upside down. So at this point I switch out into a glass bowl so it's more camera friendly and you can see what's going on. So I just scooped all that out. You don't have to do this obviously if you're not doing it for the camera. And now I get out the coconut flakes. I use sweetened coconut flakes. Most recipes use sweetened coconut flakes. You can use unsweetened if you want, but they might have a bit of a different consistency. Do about half a cup of that and carefully pour those over the completed meringue, and then fold those in super carefully because you do not want to undo all that stuff that our mixer just did for us and all of that trauma we just went through. Now I'm going to make the chocolate swirl portion of this using dark chocolate, which is 50%, and white chocolate. This results in a nice rich milk chocolate flavor, which will give it a nice candy bar kind of flair. I did about 50% white, 50% dark. You can obviously change that according to taste. Microwave that together in 15-second bursts until it's a nice kind of drizzly consistency, and then pour that carefully over your mixture and then swirl it in like this. You can use a toothpick or a butter knife or anything that kind of works to get that swirl. Now line a baking sheet or a sheet tray with parchment paper and get ready to scoop some meringues out. Now usually you would pipe meringues, but because these have the chocolate swirl and the coconut, it's a lot easier just to portion them out with a 1/2 ounce portioner, which is what I did. First I shaped them out into circles, and then I went back through and added that signature meringue tip in post. Then I took some unsalted and unroasted almonds and put those on top of each meringue, right on top of the tips I just made. In hindsight, maybe that wasn't the greatest idea, but it looked good for a minute. What's nice about the addition of these nuts is they're going to kind of get lightly roasted in the oven as these cook for the next hour, which, speaking of, time to preheat the oven if you haven't already to 275, where they're going to cook for about 45 minutes, and then cool in the turned off oven for another 45 minutes until they're hard and look like this. And then, because I had some of my chocolate mixture left over, I added some coconut oil to that to give it a better drizzle consistency, and I drizzled that over a little more than half my cookies just to add a little bit more added flair on top of the flair that's already there. That rhymes. But yes, these ended up looking great. I wish I would have done a little more blue food dye in hindsight, knowing that they would turn out green, but they tasted magnificent, and that's what counts. They had a great texture. It was kind of like a pavlova-esque texture, almost like a meringue meets a macaroon in a way, and that was just incredible. It definitely captured the spirit of the Almond Joy candy bar, but it also captured so much more. So definitely check this out if you are looking for a snack, and I'll see you in the next one.